mentally. Every single person here carries a slightly different idea of who I am. To some, I seem confident. To others, funny. To someone else, ambitious. And to another person, probably the girl who sends emails with perfect grammar. A quick show of hands. Who here has been described as quiet by at least one teacher and too loud by a parent or vice versa? None of those versions are false, but none are complete either. And the same is true for every single one of us. Every person we meet creates a version of us in their mind, a story shaped by not only what we say and do, but by who they are, their experiences, their expectations, their assumptions. Which raises an unsettling question. If everyone knows a different version of you, which one is real? Another example. A few years ago, I noticed something strange. To one group, a particular person was so helpful, always ready. To another, distant and unpredictable. To someone else, hilarious. And to another person, terrifying to ask homework answers from. And that's when I realized something unsettling. No one was lying. They were simply describing different angles. And that's when I understood something I now call identity leakage. Before I explain, I want you to turn to your shoulder partner and make any facial expression you want. Go ahead. Done? Good. Because without either of you saying a single word, you've already started forming impressions of each other. Maybe they seem awkward. Maybe they seem funny. Maybe slightly concerning. Now, before this starts sounding like a science experiment gone wrong, let me explain. Right now, parts of you are constantly leaking into other people's minds. Not the full you, just pieces. A tone you used once, a facial expression during math class, the way you sounded when you answered attendance. And somehow, then one awkward moment in grade 7 becomes your entire personality for 3 academic years. Those pieces don't stay still. They get stored, edited, replayed, and slowly they become you in someone else's mind. Not because people are trying to misunderstand you, but because human beings are storytellers. We build narratives. We fill in gaps. We turn remnants into meaning. And in doing so, we create stories out of real people, including ourselves. And honestly, school is the perfect example of this. Student life is basically one giant reputation experiment. You answer one difficult question in class, and suddenly people think you're a genius. You fail one presentation and your brain decides permanent storage, do not delete, replay at 2 a.m., especially on school nights. And in this peer pressure, one of the strangest things about being a student is how often we shape ourselves around perception. Sometimes we don't even realize it. People laugh at a joke you made once, so now you feel pressure to always be funny. Someone labels you quiet, so now speaking up feels illegal. Your friends call you the smart one, so now getting one bad grade feels like a personality crisis. We start performing versions of ourselves just to stay recognizable. Because deep down, most of us are asking the same question. If I stop acting like this, will people still know who I am? Social media amplifies this. You can choose which version of yourself gets uploaded and which gets hidden. The productive version, the aesthetic version, the I definitely studied for this test version. Meanwhile, the real version is sitting at home eating cereal at midnight, watching revision videos, and somehow ending up watching a documentary about deep sea fish at 1 a.m. for 40 minutes. Scary part is, after a while, even we start believing the edited versions. Okay, I promise I'm not here to roast our social media habits. This actually matters beyond school. One of the most famous cases of how perception shapes reality is the case of the Central Park Five. Witnesses confidently identified teenagers that they believed were involved in the event. In the end, DNA evidence proved that the original convictions were wrong, and the 5 teenagers were fully exonerated. The witnesses weren't trying to lie. They were certain perspective changes everything. So if identity depends partly on perception, then who are we, really? For a long time, that question used to bother me, because I wanted there to be one fixed answer, one permanent self untouched by opinion. But I've come to believe something different. Maybe identity isn't a single portrait. Maybe it's a gallery, a collection of incomplete perspectives. Not one lens captures the whole, not even your own. Because truth be told, we also create stories about ourselves. I'm shy, I'm awkward, I'm the smart one, I'm the one who messes things up. But these aren't identities. They're snapshots, moments mistaken for permanence. And here's the strange part. We think identity is something we own. But pieces of you exist in people who no longer talk to you. Pieces of you exist in people who misunderstood you. Pieces of you exist in the people who barely knew you at all. And you cannot edit them. You cannot retrieve them. You cannot even see them. Which is why most of us spend so much time trying to control perception. We explain ourselves. We repeat ourselves. We overthink text messages for 45 minutes. But people, they don't store truth. They store interpretation. So the question changes. It's no longer how do I make everyone see the real me? Instead, it becomes how do I stay consistent enough that no matter which version people carry, they still feel like the same core. Because even though perceptions change, some things can remain stable. Your choices, your values, your reactions when nobody's watching. The things that don't depend on applause, grades, followers, or approval. So I'll leave you with this thought. In this room right now, there are a dozen different versions of you too. Some exaggerated, some outdated, some completely wrong. You will never meet most of them. You will never even know they exist. But you will still live alongside them. So maybe the real power isn't in controlling perception, but in making sure that no matter how many versions of you exist, they all still point back to something real, something consistent, something you. Because in the end, you are not one version. You are what survives across all of them. Thank you.